Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about some Impact Wrestling, and let's talk about a big New Japan Pro Wrestling star returning to Impact Wrestling later on this month. Now, obviously, recently, there's been this, recently for the last sort of year or so, there's been this working relationship between Impact and New Japan. That's been further expanded, and it will continue to be further expanded with New Japan coming back to Access TV this year as well. But we're also seeing a big New Japan Pro Wrestling star returning to Impact later this month, that being Jay White. Yes, Jay White is returning to Impact later on in the month of January. Now, Impact announced yesterday that White will be working the upcoming television tapings from the Charles Dodge Center in Pembroke Pines, Florida. The tapings will be held on Friday, January 21st and Saturday, January 22nd. Now, of course, the Bullet Club member appeared for Impact back at their Nashville tapings in July of last year. That was the tapings after Slammiversary. Remember when Slammiversary ended? It seems like a million years ago now, doesn't it? Where it ended after Kenny Omega defeated Sami Callihan to retain the Impact World Championship. Both guys are injured now, by the way. After Kenny Omega defeated Sami Callihan, you had the Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers out there, and who suddenly appeared, Jay White, and people were going crazy. Everyone was like, what's going on? You had that situation where they were just about to start fighting, and then they cut the pay-per-view feed off, and then you had to watch Impact the following Thursday, and it was it's, like I said, it seems like a million years ago. So, of course, as I mentioned, he worked those Nashville tapings after Slammiversary. He inducted Chris Bay into the Bullet Club. Chris Bay is a member of the Bullet Club. They teamed up a couple of times, once in a loss to the Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, on the July 29 episode of Impact, and he also teamed with Bay once again for a loss to Finn Juice on the August 12 episode. So, I mean, when I saw this news yesterday, to be honest with you, I wasn't totally shocked. I'm glad they're picking it back up, because I don't want to say I'm underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed by Jay White when he came into Impact, because I don't think that's fair. My whole thing with it at the time was, great, Jay White's coming in as one of the biggest stars in New Japan, gets eyeballs on the Impact Wrestling product, got people talking. There certainly was a buzz coming out of Slammiversary. There was a buzz for those television tapings. There was a buzz to see what Jay White was going to do, how many matches he was going to work with Impact, what the situation with Impact was going to be going forward. I think at one point, even I speculated there could be Kenny Omega, an AEW star, versus a New Japan star, and Jay White for the Impact World Championship, and maybe Jay White would win it, and he would replace Kenny Omega as the sort of invading outside force that was the Impact World Champion. Of course, that didn't happen in the end. But I was interested and excited as to what this was going to do and what was going to plan out from Jay White's appearance, and I sort of finished up being a bit underwhelmed by it all, mainly because it didn't lead to anything. Yes, Chris Bay was inducted into the Bullet Club, and that sort of gave Chris Bay something to do and highlighted Chris Bay, and Lord knows I'm a huge Chris Bay fan. And Chris Bay's been doing that on New Japan Strong as well, and that kind of stuff. But I kind of just went, okay, you had this big angle at Slammiversary, and what did it lead to? Nothing. It left to nothing. And Jay White appeared on a couple of episodes of Impact, and it kind of just felt like, from a fan's perspective of Impact, just wanted a big name to work the tapings, and they'd hoped that it would create buzz and do a couple of good numbers. And it did, but I looked at it as, okay, where are you going to go after this? Now, hopefully, with Jay White coming back for these television tapings, this is where it's going to go. I'm assuming they'll continue the Chris Bay storyline, but I would want something more. I think if I'm Impact Wrestling, I would say, right, what can we get out of this? We need a big match. And maybe we'll talk about this more in depth in another video, but if I'm Impact, I'm looking at the names we've got on the roster right now, and I'm saying, what's the biggest match we can do? And arguably, I think about Jay White versus Josh Alexander, but it's probably not the biggest one. Right now, it's whoever is the world champion, and that's Moose. Moose is, de facto, is the world champion. He's probably the biggest star in the company right now on the male side of things. And he does appear for New Japan. He has appeared at various New Japan events. He appeared at the last New Japan event. That wasn't Wrestle Kingdom. That was based over here in the United States, rather, in Los Angeles. And I think, well, they could do something there. They could absolutely do something there. When they have their next New Japan show based in the States, or a special event, I'm not sure when it is. I don't really keep up with that much, with that stuff that much. But whenever that is, they could absolutely do Moose versus Jay White for the Impact World Championship. Or certainly at the next Impact event, they could do Jay White versus Moose for the Impact World Championship then as well. So my hope is that with Jay White coming back in, it leads to something more substantial. I think, well, I certainly hope it would. And I spoke about this before when we spoke about New Japan announcing their deal to return to Access TV. Given that New Japan is now going to follow Impact Wrestling every Thursday night, you've got that big block of pro wrestling programming on Access TV. You've got Before the Impact for an hour, you've got Impact on Access TV for 2 hours, and then you've got New Japan. And I think the newer episodes are beginning in March. That working relationship that's already there between Impact and New Japan is just going to be expanded, which will mean I think we're going to see even more crossover. Any New Japan stars that are based in the United States, any of the domestic New Japan stars, which include Jay White, I think are going to appear on Impact Wrestling far more regularly. And maybe this is the beginning of that. And it's also just, it's fascinating the sort of status and sort of situation right now when it comes to Impact, isn't it? Because think about it, you're going to have an Impact Wrestling taping, a television taping for their TV show on Access TV. That's going to obviously have Impact stars there, contracted Impact stars there. It's going to have essentially free agents, people like Matt Cardona that don't have a contract. You're going to have these ex-Ring of Honor stars that don't have a contract with Ring of Honor anymore, but they're going to be representing Ring of Honor, or at least that's what they're known for. They're the ROH stars. And then you're also going to have the New Japan stars there as well. It's a real smorgasbord, shall we say, of pro wrestling promotions coming to one place, and I think that's fascinating. So as far as plans, what he's planned to do, you know, the intentions, the creative for Jay White going forward, we don't know. To speculate, like I said, I'm sure they'll continue something with the Bullet Club and Chris Bay and Chris Bay's representation of the Bullet Club. Of course, he's been teaming with Hikuleo recently on Impact Wrestling as well, so I'm sure they'll continue that. But I would prefer it to be something more substantial than just, oh, the leader of the Bullet Club's coming around and he's just checking in. He's checking in on the Impact, you know, like in Sons of Anarchy, right? When you've got all of these chapters around the world. Yes, you've got the Bullet Club in New Japan, but you've got it based in the United States. And you've also got a chapter based in Impact Wrestling. And this is just the leader coming around checking that everything's all right. I want it to be something more substantial and lead to something more substantial. And that's a match. That's a match for a world title. And at the moment, that's against Moose, or maybe they could do something slightly different. I don't know. But that's ultimately what I would be looking towards. Whether or not they'll do that, I don't know. Now, I spoke about the Ring of Honor angle that they've been doing recently, and a bit of a spoiler warning here, but as you can, it's not really much of a spoiler, I suppose, that the Ring of Honor angle did continue at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings. Now, I mentioned the other day how Charlie Haas made his debut and he actually got injured in one of these Ring of Honor segments. But I'm not sure what their officially their name is going to be, but they're being called the ROH Road Group. Of course, it consists of Maria Kanellis, Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, Vincent, and PCO. At the television tapings, they jumped D'Lo Brown in a segment at the announce desk. They actually put him through the announce table, and he missed the rest of the television tapings. We're actually going to talk about the announcing situation in a second. But that wasn't the only time that they appeared. Of course, you had the ROH Women's World Championship change that we spoke about the other day as well. But also you had Jonathan Gresham defend the ROH World Championship once again. This time it was against Steve Macklin at the television tapings. Now, interestingly, this ROH Road Group actually watched that match from the balcony. So kind of teasing that maybe Jonathan Gresham may or may not be involved in that road group. That's something to really keep an eye on, which is quite interesting as well. I mentioned the Charlie Haas injury. Now, during the match with Charlie Haas, it was actually Chris Sabin that was on commentary with Tom Hannifan, which is quite curious. We're going to talk about Tom Hannifan in a second. But after that match, of course, that's when Charlie Haas got injured. Now, this ROH Road Group jumped Alexander and Charlie Haas. It led to Chris Sabin, Rich Swann, Willie Mack, Heath, and Rhino coming to make the rescue. Out came Eddie Edwards as well with a kendo stick and finally turned the tide for Team Impact. But Maria Kanellis, this is the interesting part of this. This is what ended the television tapings. Maria Kanellis had a promo then from the balcony, the same balcony that the Ring of Honor guys were watching earlier on, and said there was no more honor. Edwards responded then saying that Impact wouldn't be disrespected. So I think, look, the angle when it happened at Hard to Kill last weekend was unexpected. I don't think anyone saw it coming. As I mentioned before, I'm hesitant when it comes to invasion storylines, but just because in the past they haven't been done well. And also as well, I would say maybe it's slightly tough to buy in to a promotion invading when we know the promotion not that it doesn't exist, because Ring of Honor does still exist, but the promotion has changed drastically, and they just released the entirety of their roster. It's one thing to have ROH contracted talent appear at Impact and invade Impact Wrestling when ROH is still running shows and television tapings. That would be quite an interesting angle, because you'd be like, okay, they're definitely working with each other. Like I said, Ring of Honor does still exist, but they don't have anyone under contract anymore because they released all of their rosters. So I don't know if they're necessarily there representing ROH, or eventually they're going to reveal themselves of, no, we're not representing ROH, we're something completely different, akin to, and this is a very loose comparison, it must be said, but in the same way, I guess, with the NWO, right? In the mid 1990s, 1996 to be specific, when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash first came out, it was kind of implied that they were invading from WWE. Now, eventually, because of lawsuits, they had to say, no, we're not invading from WWE. We're not even contracted to WWE. And then eventually it was a case of, no, it's the NWO. They're invading WCW and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they're going to try and do something similar to that. They're not actually representing ROH. If anything, they've been freed from ROH, which has allowed them to come and try and take over Impact Wrestling. I don't know. I applaud Impact for doing something different. I applaud them for getting people's attention. I think Impact Wrestling hasn't been very buzzworthy, shall we say, the last couple of months, certainly after Bound for Glory, and the ratings have kind of reflected that. And is this an angle that's going to pick up ratings? I don't know. But it's interesting. I think it's something that people are interested in. I think it's something that people are talking about. I think it's something that, you know, but it's piqued people's attention. Where they go with it and what their ultimate end goal is with it, we don't ultimately know at the moment. But I'm certainly curious. I'm sure that none of these guys have signed contracts or anything like that. I'm sure they're all technically free agents, and as with anything when it comes to Impact Wrestling, probably just feeling the guys out. You know, if you want to have something more substantial, if you want to actually sign something eventually, we can work to that. As of right now, you don't have to sign anything. It's just a case of some regular work before you find out really what's going on. And to be honest, from a business point of view, all of these Ring of Honor stars were let go from their contract right at the end of December. It's not dumb of Impact Wrestling to be like, okay, at the earliest opportunity, we're going to bring a bunch of you guys in. Now, obviously, PCO's contract expired a little bit earlier. It was actually November, but I'm curious. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know where you think this angle's going and ultimately what it's going to lead to. I could see it leading to maybe like a lethal lockdown or something like that. Possibly. Absolutely possibly. Finally, I want to talk about Tom Hannifan. I mentioned we were going to talk about Tom Hannifan, obviously formerly known as Tom Phillips in WWE, and he's provided some details as to how this Impact Wrestling commentary position has actually come about. Now, of course, Tom Hannifan, was with the WWE for 9 years. He exited WWE, and this past weekend, he made his return to pro wrestling for Impact Wrestling at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view. Now, he's now the official play-by-play commentator for the company, replacing Matt Stryker alongside D'Lo Brown at the commentary desk. Now, Renee Paquette welcomed Hannifan on her Oral Sessions podcast to discuss how this opportunity came about. He said that things began to develop over the last month or so. He has friends within the company who contacted him, and the Impact schedule drew him in. He said, quote, "It only really developed within the last month, you know. I love how people on the internet try and come up with concepts and rumors and stuff like that. But, you know, I have a lot of friends here that kind of connected me with the powers that be. And I had some good conversations. And honestly, the schedule was very attractive because, as you know, I just got done doing a 52-week year schedule for about 9 years or so. So I was like, this was great. This is really cool. And everything I was told about in the locker room is like an Impact. What Scott D'Amore and Josh Matthews are like and everything. Everything's been accurate thus far. I worked one day, but everything's been awesome, so it was cool. And you know how it is when you watch a whole bunch of people there, and like showing up yesterday and seeing Matt Rewalt, the former Aiden English, and being like, what the hell are you doing here? So it was really cool. Now, going into his Impact debut, Hanifan was nervous, but he credited D'Lo Brown for making him comfortable. Once he was able to find his footing, he was able to enjoy calling the action. He said, you and I have seen it over the years where they want to debut either an in-ring talent or an announcer at a pay-per-view, and it's like on paper, it's like, oh, that sounds super cool. And it's like, no, in reality, it's really nerve-wracking. I was nervous as hell. He said it was a lot of fun. Working with D'Lo was a breeze, so it was just, I don't know. I hadn't caught a wrestling match in like 6 months, so I hadn't done something the caliber of a pay-per-view since March, so I was like, oh, okay, this is different. Like, once I got into it, it was so much fun. Crowd was hot. It was awesome. So, in fairness, you know, I was a big Tom Phillips fan. I really was, and I'm not just saying that because he's now with Impact Wrestling. I've been a Tom Phillips fan. I thought, you know, I think Michael Cole gets a lot of negativity, and I think it gets a lot of criticism. Sometimes it's deserved, but I think you do have to respect that Michael Cole is pretty good at what he does. But Tom Phillips, for me, this is why I was so shocked when he was let go. To me, he was always the heir apparent to Michael Cole. Michael Cole isn't getting any younger. He can still go for probably like a decade, to be honest with you, in WWE. But I always assumed that Tom Phillips was going to be the guy to replace Michael Cole, given that he'd been there for a while. He has a good voice. He knows the moves. He'd done everything in WWE, whether it's host, interview, you name it. I was shocked when they let him go. And I think it's a great pickup. I mentioned that, for me, the number one play-by-play guy in the world is still Mauro Ranallo. Obviously, you can't get Mauro to do even just those tapings, and that's what it is. But I'm a big Tom Hannifan guy, so I thought he did great at Hard to Kill, and I think it's a great pickup. Personally, I still think it's a bit harsh to let Matt Striker go to facilitate Tom Hannifan coming in. I think a perfect, ideally, commentary team would actually be Tom Hannifan and Matt Striker. Matt Striker's best work for me is as a color commentator, not a play-by-play guy. So that kind of sucks still, but I've mentioned, I think it's a great pickup for Impact Wrestling, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do going forward with the company. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community and drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.